One of the very few vacations we ever took was up to Hartwick Pines. And there's David and I. I'm like, I got up there, how am I going to get down? Once as a littler child, I climbed up a tree and couldn't get down, and Jasper had to come and get me down. It was a good thing he was there visiting that day. Of course, David just goes right up. Hartwick Pines is up, I believe it's north of Grayling. I'm not sure how old the pines are or how tall. But when I go up to Mackinac Island, I see that they're still there, and there's still a park. There's my mama. So Dad's taking the pictures. And I don't know. That's the monarch white pine. I would assume it's still there. Pretty tall. This, I don't know. I think this is probably on 31 coming back from Hartwick Pines. That was my grandfather and my Uncle George. This is Mom and David on the sandhill, our sandhill overlooking Lake Michigan. They left me at home that day, I believe. We spent so many hours as kids down on that beach, on that sandhill. I believe Mom is debarking those poles for our fence. And this is when Dad built a fireplace. I was thinking 63, but I was definitely not 9 years old there, so maybe more like 61 or 2. I remember that little tree, too. I think that little tree is still there, but it's not little anymore, of course. Dad came home one day. David and I were outside. Dad said, "Go tell your mother to move the television. I'm busting the wall down." Maggie Shellhorn lived out in Grand Junction. Mom had been engaged to her brother, and his name was Clyde Seward. He died on Normandy in World War II. Mom and Maggie were still good friends, and we would go out and see Maggie quite often. That is Leanie. Leanie lived in Watervliet. My dad knew her dad. She was a good friend, but I have no idea where she is. Well, I don't know her last name. I don't know her dad's name. But we were almost twins. We were about the same size, same hair color. This is our sandhill. We're about 4 miles south of the beach. Of the channel of South Haven. And the lake is frozen over. I was in South Haven this last weekend, and it wasn't frozen like this. You could still see water out there. Dad is obviously out on the ice. There's our sandhill. Great place for a child to grow up. Must be Duke. And there is what we called the Indian Village. Somebody had made a teepee up there, and so when we were kids, we called that particular mound the Indian Village. Palisades is not there, obviously. This poor squirrel. They said it was a flying squirrel, but squirrels don't fly, they glide. And these guys were really harassing that poor squirrel to get him to fly. This is the South Haven Pier. Probably the winter of 61, maybe 62. Maybe earlier than that. I don't know. This looks like it might be the LCJ or the Butch. It was definitely not the Peggy Marie. And I don't really know why they're out there, except I believe there's another ship another tug probably out further that is in distress, and maybe this guy was trying to help. They were definitely not Coast Guard cutters. They should not have been out there. Fishing was quite the industry in South Haven back in the 60s. Now it's boat tours. See, there's the other boat. Boat tours and kayaks and canoes, windsurfing, and the lighthouse, and the North Pier. I wouldn't be out there. It's got to be my dad. He was the adventurous one with the cracks in the ice. March 1960. This is up on the sandhill looking east. And there's Duke. I don't remember not having Duke and Duchess, so I was probably quite young when we got them. Duchess was our dog, and Duke was her son. She also had a son that we gave to May and Jim Blaha. The sandhill has changed so very much. When Jason was a kid, they called the Indian village King's Mountain. Can you imagine that? We used to go down and get rocks, make little houses with the rocks. That structure is gone. The catwalk is still there, but that first structure in that little red building is gone now. Jason still goes down, my son Jason still goes down on the beach and hunts for rocks. However, what he hunts for now is called sodalites. They're also called Uber rocks, and they glow orange when you shine a UV light on them. I love to go down and rock hunt with him. We thought about going down this past week, but it was a little bit cold. Oldsmobile. I'm trying to think of the name. I used to know it. This was my dad and his neon sign business. He and Ed Feeney got this business together. On the corner where the Family Dollar is in South Haven, that would be on Broadway and Green, is where this business was, this car lot. Dad also put up the sign for the What Not Inn up near Fenville on 31. I don't remember the cross street. My dad had lots of dreams. At one point he had about 6 or 7 Corvairs. He thought they were pretty cool, having that engine in front. He also had a gyrocopter. Looked like a little teeny tiny helicopter with a great big fan on the back, kind of like those things you see down in the Florida Everglades. I'm not sure that there wasn't a dream that my dad didn't have. In his later years, he was a farmer. They bought property, he and Mary bought property down in Alabama. He had 10 acres. I don't know that he actually farmed anything or grew anything, but he enjoyed it, enjoyed the land. At one point they had property in Ocala, but they never did anything with it. And then in the early 80s, they lived on Tavernier Key. I don't remember what Dad did there. He didn't work for Southern Air because that was when they lived in Hialeah by Miami. I used to call. He worked for the Miami Country Club at one point also as their maintenance man. And I used to call down there to talk to him, and I would ask for the maintenance department. At one point they had a pony. His name was Lucky. Lucky had been in a circus or a rodeo or something like that. His owner had taught him to run and stop and throw his head down, and the rider would jump off and do a somersault, and land on his feet in front of the horse. Well, when Dad got Lucky, the horse thought we were supposed to do that too. Us kids were kind of afraid to ride him because we never knew when he was going to stop and throw his head down. One time, he kicked my cousin Denise. Denise recently put that on Facebook, a picture of her head where she got kicked. She was, I don't know, what were you, Denise? Maybe 10? She had this great big looking horseshoe on the side of her head, left side. Didn't seem to faze her any, though. She's a beautiful lady, and she's an amazing artist. That is Harry Maynard, excuse me. Harry is my mom's cousin.